right, if President Obama lost some momentum after Wednesday's debate, today's jobs report, could it bring it back? It's the first report to show an unemployment rate below 8% since the very beginning of his presidency. David Plouffe is a senior advisor to the president and, of course, the architect of the 2008 campaign. He joins me now. So, David, let me get your first reaction. How important psychologically is it, do you believe, to have an unemployment number below 8% the month before the election?
Well, Chuck, I don't think we should focus on the politics today. This is obviously showing that we continue to recover from a horrible recession. We've created over 5.2 million private sector jobs the last 30 months. As you pointed out, the unemployment rate's now back to where it was in January of 2009. And I'd like to make the point, though, and I think we did talk about this debate Wednesday. The recession wasn't an accident. There were policies and reasons that contributed to it. And, you know, reckless Wall Street behavior, tax cuts for the wealthy, unpaid for. These are the exact same policies Mitt Romney wants to return to. And I think the president made that point very Wednesday, that the middle class in our economy can't afford it.
I want to play for you some reaction from your supporters at the rally in Denver about the president and the debate. Here's what they told me.
I think he could have done better.
I think that President Obama needs to put his gloves on and fight back.
I didn't know quite what was going on as far as, you know, maybe he's dealing with some crisis in the Middle East.
I think maybe he needs to rest.
David, that's a lot of advice from supporters. What do you say to them?
Well, first of all, I was at that event in Denver, as were those great supporters of ours yesterday, and that was a magnificent event, a lot of energy. The point is, you know, we've got a great organization in Colorado. We were in Wisconsin yesterday. They're fired up. They're going to work very hard. Obviously, you know, we're going to take some lessons out of that first debate. I think it was remarkable, by the way, that the first, other than some pleasantries, the first words out of Governor Romney's mouth were untrue, saying he didn't have a $5 trillion tax cut. So we've seen the campaign as not just one moment, one day. We've had a consistency to it, a case we're making that the president has the right pathway forward for the country and the middle class, that Governor Romney would be a return to the trickle-down policies that failed the country, devastated the middle class. So, you know, there's obviously an important debate next week between our vice president and Paul Ryan. We have another debate in about 11 days. And, you know, we're looking forward to continue to make that case.
You used the words, I think, dishonest or not making an honest argument. You just did it again. Do you believe that Mitt Romney is intentionally lying about his record or lying about his plans?
Well, I think he is. I mean, you know, Chuck, this is the cornerstone of his entire campaign and his economic plan. I mean, it really was a remarkable thing. It'd be like in 2008 if we got on the stage and said, I don't really want to end the Iraq war and I'm not for health care reform and, you know, I don't want to have a green energy future. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And the reason he's trying to obfuscate here is because that tax cut plan is something the American people don't want to support. A huge tax cut for the wealthy, paid for by the middle class, or blowing a hole in our deficit.
Well,
he says he's not.
He says, David, he says he's not. That his plan is not a tax cut plan, and that, you know, he is going to find a way to offset them. You not take him at his word?
It's a complete fairy tale. It's a 20% tax cut across the board for everyone, huge business tax cuts. Everyone who looks at it agrees that the number's $5 trillion over 10 years, and he says I'll pay for it with deductions he won't name. You know, it's the middle class, and the president made this point in the debate, that if you think somehow you're not going to bear the burden for this, then, you know, take that risk and vote for Governor Romney. But, again, this isn't just some issue that he threw out one day on the campaign trail. It's the centerpiece of his entire campaign, his economic philosophy. By the way, he made pretty clear the other day that he's not going to ask the wealthy to contribute one single dime to help reduce our deficit or grow our economy.
Well, I was going to play. This is what Joe Biden yesterday said about tax hikes, and then what Paul Ryan said in response. I want to play that for you and get your response on the other side.
You know the phrase they always use? Obama and Biden want to raise taxes by $8 trillion. Guess what? Yes, we do in one regard. We want to let that $1 trillion tax cut expire so the middle class doesn't have to bear the burden of all that money going to the super wealthy.
And he asked if he and President Obama want a $1 trillion tax hike. And his response to himself was, yes, we do. That's a direct quote, friends. Well, Virginia, no, we don't.
So is that a fair way to say it? That, you know, the president is campaigning on raising, you know, getting rid of that tax cut, raising taxes, $1 trillion on the wealthy, and the Romney campaign, no. I mean, is that a fair way to draw the line?
Well, we've been clear. Obviously, you know, we have tough choices to make in this country. You know, we've got investments to make. We've got a deficit to close. So what the vice president was saying is that we want to continue middle-class tax cuts. The Republicans want to hold them hostage so that we continue tax cuts for the wealthy. That's a fundamental difference. And by the way, with today's economic news, we should continue to make progress. One thing we can do right away is pass a middle-class tax cut so that, you know, 98% of the American people will have the confidence that their taxes won't go up next year. Very important for consumer confidence, very important for our economy. And, you know, Governor Romney ought to tell his running mate, Paul Ryan, to call up the House Republican leadership of what he's a member and get this done so that we can give security and a guarantee to the middle class of this country and our economy that taxes aren't going to go up on them next year.
Do you believe the fundamentals of this campaign have changed from Wednesday morning to today?
I don't think so, Chuck. Obviously, though, we'll be able to evaluate that in the coming days. My sense is, you know, we've got a pretty important lead in some battleground states. You know, we always thought this was going to be closer.
You don't think that's going to change?
Well, we don't think so. First of all, you know, the president's, you know, got a high support level, you know, 49, 50, 51, depending on the state. We like what we're seeing in terms of the early vote and absentee ballot requests. So we don't think that that's going to change. But we're going to be able to measure this. I'm sure that, you know, the Romney campaign says they're raising a lot of money. I'm sure that's true. But our supporters are energized. You know, in Denver yesterday, in Madison yesterday, big crowds, enthusiastic crowds. But, you know, we'll see where we are next week. You know, my sense is the fundamental structure of the campaign's not changed. And some of the reasons that, you know, we've been able to build a lead are around these senses of the middle class that the president has the right ideas for them. And that hasn't changed. Mitt Romney doubled down on turning Medicare into a voucher program, doubled down on rolling back Wall Street reform. You know, he did some things on Wednesday night that, even though his performance was judged to be strong, I think will really cause his campaign problems here in the closing 4.5 weeks.
David Plouffe, senior advisor for President Obama, architect of the 2008 campaign and a big part of this one. Thanks for coming on this morning, sir.
Sure. See you, Chuck.